Hi, welcome to today's video. My name is Paul. So this week, this video, I'm releasing this sort of at the end of 2025, beginning of 2026. It's that sort of time of the year, maybe reflecting on the year that's just passed and the year to come up, what I would like to do. So I'm going to talk about the type of art that I've created in 2025, mention a little bit about some of the art that I would like to create in 2026. This is not me banging my own drum, look at what the wonderful art that I make or anything like that. And although it does sound a bit egotistical, it's more just maybe it will help inspire some people, some ideas for type of art that you might want to create yourself in 2026. I'll also talk about some of the media that I use to create this art. So again, that might give some ideas to some people. That's the idea behind the video. So on screen you can see some examples of the type of art that I've created. As you can see, most of it is landscape drawing and painting, but there is some sort of figure drawing and a little bit of cartooning as well. So we'll go through, let's say, some of the different media that I use. The first one is soft pastels, and I use these for landscape drawing and painting. And on the right you can see 4 examples of the type of thing I'm talking about. The pastels, the soft pastels that I use are Schmincke soft pastels. These are the pastels that I would recommend to anybody who's thinking about starting with soft pastels. I say I recommend them. They work for me and my style of painting, which is somewhat impressionistic or expressionistic. It's not realistic. It's not naturalistic. I don't know if the Schmincke pastels are good for realism or naturalism because that's not the type of art that I make. They are very soft pastels. Although the name for this medium is soft pastels, they're not all created equal. Some of them are truly soft, such as the Schmincke pastels, and to a large extent Sennelier soft pastels are also very soft. But then you get other brands, especially some of the cheaper brands, that are actually quite hard and, in my opinion, not nearly as good. The reason I use soft pastels is because they are soft and buttery, and when you put the pigment onto the paper you get that vivid, bright color. And that's the whole point of using this medium for me. So I really don't like the hard versions of pastels. Also, some of those cheaper pastels, the reason they're cheaper is they use less pigment, and they also use cheaper pigments, and that shows up in the final artwork. You get what you pay for, really. So in my opinion, it's better to have 5 really high quality soft pastels rather than 50 low quality or medium quality pastels. That's my opinion. It's a medium that I want to continue using in 2026. I just keep going the way I have been trying. In 2025, I moved away from using pastel papers and building up layers and complicated approaches to trying to use this medium. I ditched all of that. I use now just a simple sketch paper or drawing paper and keep everything very simple and somewhat minimalist. And I'm much happier with this style these days. So it's something I want to keep doing and keep exploring. So I say with soft pastels, a lot of people do use specialized paper, but it's not essential. I say I just use a toned sketch paper. The next medium that I use is charcoal. I prefer willow charcoal, but different people have different choices and preferences. Charcoal comes in many different forms. Willow charcoal, vine charcoal, and some other materials as well. But you can also get it in compressed form, powdered form, liquid charcoal, charcoal pencils. There are many different forms of charcoal. but I like just the basic charcoal sticks, the willow charcoal sticks that you can see on the left of the screen. Works for me, and I just use it with a white drawing paper, a cartridge paper. So again, there's nothing special about the paper, it's just a basic sketchbook or drawing book. And on the right you can see a couple of examples. Obviously there's no color to work with, so some people would see that as a limitation, and it is in a way a limitation, but I think these black and white drawings have a sort of power of their own. It can still be very impactful, this type of art, I think. And I do like the contrast. The reason I use the white paper rather than the toned paper with the charcoal is I want that maximum contrast between the white paper and the black charcoal. The third medium that I use a lot is watercolor. With watercolor, I prefer Sennelier watercolor. I say with the soft pastels, I prefer Schmincke. I think theirs is the best quality for the price that they are. Sennelier watercolor and Sennelier soft pastels, when they're good, they are very, very good. The problem is that the consistency is not always 100%. So they can be very, very good, but also sometimes they're a bit sort of not so good. You know, when you're buying it, it's hard to know what you're getting, sort of thing. With Schmincke and a lot of the other brands, it's more consistent, the quality. But as I do like using Sennelier watercolor. It's not for everybody. If you're vegan, you probably want to avoid these. They contain honey, for example. And some of the pigments they use are not, you know, they're animal-based pigments. Or at least they used to be. I think these days a lot of companies are getting away from that, moving towards more chemical-based pigments. But anyway, watercolor, it's a unique medium. Yeah, true, there are other water-soluble paints out there. Gouache, for example. Acrylic, of course, is water-soluble. And you can even get water-soluble oil paint. I have no idea how that works, because obviously oil and water famously don't mix, but somehow they made it work. I've never tried it. I've never really tried oil painting. But although those different paints are water soluble, they are not watercolor. Watercolor is totally unique, especially in wet painting on an actual watercolor paper. The results that you get, the effects that you get, you cannot reproduce those with any other medium. So in that sense, watercolor to me is a very special medium to play around with. Again, it's something that I want to keep using going into 2026, and I want to sort of get back into it because this year, since September, I ended up in hospital in September, quite sick, and since then I haven't been doing as much art, and I haven't really been doing any watercolor painting. So it's something I really want to get back into as soon as I can. One medium that I did play around with this year, since getting sick, was these pens. Drawing pens, artist pens. I've heard some people call them fine liners. They have different names. It's all the same thing, basically. They're disposable pens. Some of them contain India ink, and some of them contain an alcohol-based ink. I use them for scribbling, but you could, as the name would suggest, the fine liner, you can create fine lines with them as well. More rendered drawings. But I like to scribble. It's the way I do things. So on the right you can see a couple of examples, and I've been doing little landscapes and houses and a few animal drawings and things using these sort of pens. It's something I want to play around with more in 2026, and also possibly combining it with other media. So doing some mixed media stuff with these pens, possibly. In terms of drawing, another thing that I do occasionally, not so much in the winter, but it's going outside and sketching people. The materials that I tend to use, sometimes graphite pencils, very often charcoal pencils, and small drawing books. And by small I mean like A5 size. I don't know what A5 is in inches. I'm not really sure what inches are, to be honest. But it's a small drawing book that, you know, it fits easily in a pocket or in the palm of your hand, and you can just sort of casually draw people without drawing too much attention to what you're doing. I never ask people if it's okay to draw them, which sounds a bit weird and creepy, but the reason I do that is I want to draw people as they're walking down the street and things, and just being natural and moving in a natural way, because that's really what I'm trying to capture very often is movement and the way people hold themselves, or when they're standing, you know, how do they stand, how do they balance their weight, body weight and things. If you're drawing someone, a professional model for example, you don't really get that because they tend to get into, you know, artistic poses and things like that. They're not moving, they're sort of static, and it's just not the same thing. So I prefer to go out in the street and just do these quick sketches, and they are quick sketches. They're not rendered drawings, just of people. Sometimes I do more rendered drawings, not very often. I should do more of them probably. But very often these are copying other artists. So in this case, copying a couple of drawings. I think these are both by the Spanish artist Goya. That's probably not how you pronounce his name. I've also, Rembrandt is one of my favorite ones to try and copy. It's a challenge. Trying to copy a master artist is, if you're going to do it, you have to be gentle with yourself, because, you know, trying to reproduce what they do is incredibly difficult. You could, I guess, trace what they're doing or use grids and things. I don't. I just try to judge things by eye and do it that way. My goal is not to reproduce every single pencil mark or brush stroke. It's just to be inspired by copying a great master's artwork. And it is a challenge, and sometimes, you know, it's good to have these challenges. Push yourself a little bit. These drawings, I did them with colored charcoal pencils. So again, something I'll do in the background, but it's not my main thing. Landscapes are more sort of my main thing. The last one is something I do now and again. It's cartooning. Cartooning is really how I got into art and into drawing in the first place. I don't do it very much these days, but occasionally I do. It's fun. I enjoy it. It's not too serious. And again, it's still a challenge, especially the more complicated cartoons. Again, as with the previous example, I tend to do a lot of copying of other artists, other cartoonists that I admire. So that's the type of art that I've been doing in 2025. I say some of it, at least, I'll continue in 2026, and some of it I'll use to experiment with. Of all the different media that I use, obviously pencils and charcoal are the cheapest and easiest to get your hands on. You don't need any special papers, and you don't even need to go to a specialist art store to get pencils, or maybe charcoal, but not pencils. You can buy those pretty much anywhere. More specialist things like watercolor, soft pastels, then you do need to spend a bit more money. Sort of, you pay for what you get. And if you want really good quality paints, good quality paper, brushes, etc., unfortunately it does cost quite a bit of money. One way of keeping costs down is to use limited palettes. In the case of liquid paints, like watercolor for example, you can always mix colors. You don't need to buy every single color. blue and yellow will give you greens and so on. In the case of soft pastels, of course, you can't do that. It's a dry medium and you can't mix them. There's no palettes involved or anything like that. So if you want green, you have to go out and buy green. If you want a bluish green, you have to go out and buy that, and so on and so on. So yeah, that is one of the cons, one of the downsides of soft pastels. They can get quite expensive quite quickly. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching, listening, and hopefully see you again in next week's video. And if you're watching this in real time, that will be 2026, next year.